Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we have this is a Toro tractor. I nicknamed him Happy. I put a decent amount of work into this tractor. Rebuilt the hood because it was all cracked and broken. Now, as you can see here, I have plenty of rotted metal here. Now this all came from the deck, and I'll show you the deck now. So this is the deck, and as you can see, I'm welding it up. These are not the best welds, but it's alright, because if I try to run a solid bead, it burns through the metal. So what I'm doing is just kind of blotching it on, and then I'm going to grind it down, and then I'll run a solid bead to close it. But for now, the point of this video is, as you can see, I cut this out. This was really bad, and you can see this is the piece here that I put in, and you can see it's perfectly shaped. I'll flip it around. As you can see here, it's perfectly welded in. The shape is exactly what it should be. I did get some burn through here, so I got to cut some of this out. When you do this, if the metal is weak that you're welding to, you're going to burn through. So I'm probably going to have to cut a little notch here and weld another piece. So the way I've been getting these metal is I picked up this mower, was in the junk on the side of the road. It did have a motor on it. I took the motor off and got rid of it just so I can move it around easier. But you can find these, people throw these things away all the time. Now, if you look on the side, this is the curvature that you need to fix your deck. As you can see here, this would be this piece here. So what you do is you cut the piece out, and then you would, I'll show you on this side, you would cut the piece out and put it right up against here and find exactly on here where it would match up perfectly with the curvature. Like right about there looks good. You can see the curvature is pretty good. Like right here. So then all you do is you mark it out with a permanent marker. Cut the piece out. And you always want to cut a little bit bigger than the line you draw, because the blade is going to take about 1/8 of an inch of metal away. So you want to cut a little bit bigger than the piece you cut out. That way, because you don't want to, what you don't want to do is weld on top of the metal. You want it, you know, if you see here, it's like smooth. You don't want to weld on top. And then as you can see here, I had to use 2 pieces. So what I did is I grabbed the curve, which is right here, and then I welded that in. Then I cut this part out separately and then welded that to that. Still got to be grinded down, still got to be fixed up a bit. But you're going to want to definitely, when you're cutting the metal out of the other mower, make sure that it's not rotted. You know, make sure it's decent metal. To clean this all up, I removed all the accessories. There's a big piece of metal that goes here, obviously the spindles, and on the other side some of the pulleys and stuff. What you want to do is clean this whole entire thing with a wire wheel brush. I got a real nice one from Ace that fits. It's not supposed to fit, but it fits on a grinder. I'll show you that now. So this is what I use. This is actually for a bench grinder, and it fits on a regular grinder. But you got to be careful. You can see how close it is to your fingers. But this thing just rips it right up nice. You want to do that because I thought I was almost done, and I found this after I cleaned. I found these pinholes here, and there's some pinholes right here. So I still got a few spots that I need to cut and weld in. But yeah, I wouldn't have seen these little spots if I didn't, you know, bring it down to bare metal almost with this. So you definitely want to get it nice and clean. The spots you can't weld in flush, like if you can't get to both sides like this, I think a rock went through. I don't know if you can see that. Now I can't get to the back side of this to grind it and make it look nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it out, and then I'm going to surface weld it, and then I'll just paint the back side. So that way I can just run a solid bead nice, just to close that hole. But the deck, you really want it flush so no grass will get stuck. You don't want a plate sticking up, and you don't want a plate sticking down. You want it as flush as possible. That way you can grind all this and make it, you know, nice and uniformed. But the like I said, the best part is you can find these mowers everywhere. And as you can see, I took a lot of metal off of this mower. I took a few pieces off the front, quite a few pieces off the side, and even in the back I took a nice piece. And the advantage is that it's the curvature is the same, and the metal thickness is the same, and they're usually free. People throw them away. So I'll show you exactly what I do, because I have one. I have a couple I have to do. So I'll show you that, how to cut it out, and what exactly I do. Wheel on your grinder. Alright, and as you can see, I got some of the holes on the deck. Make sure if you need the hole, if you do cut it, you have to measure it and re-drill it. But fortunately for me, this hole is just an extra hole. As you can see, I got those little pinholes here that were there, and the big Mark, the way I found this is basically after you find the rust, you're just going to hit it with a hammer. If the hammer goes through it, it's junk. Cut it out, replace it. Easy enough, right? So what we could do is search for a piece. That's why it's good not to cut it too big. Right here looks like it'll work pretty good. Obviously I'll have to flatten the metal after I cut it. But and that looks like it'll work pretty good. I really wish this would have worked. I mean, it kind of will. I mean, it doesn't really matter where you cut. Because this piece is flat, so it doesn't really matter. But like I said, you always want to go a little bit, so don't make your line right up against it like that. Kind of put it on an angle. So you're cutting a little bit bigger than what you need. And you can just freehand it too if you have a steady enough hand. The blade is going to keep it somewhat straight regardless. But you do want to go a little bit bigger than you need. What I'm going to do is, even though this has a bend in it, I'll put it on my my vise and use a hammer and flatten the bend out, because I don't need any more bent metal. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on. You can see it has a little bend to it. I'm going to flatten that out with a sledgehammer and my vise. So I'll be right back. All right, as you can see, I took the bend out of it. Nice and flat. It doesn't take much force to get these. You know, I just got a 3-pound sledgehammer, and on a piece of steel, you just flatten it out. So as you can see, a lot of people, what they would do now is weld this plate over top like that. And I mean, that's fine if you want to do it that way. But the problem is, when you do it like that, if you look underneath, let's see. You'll have this lip, this indentation. And I've seen people put caulking around it and all kinds of you know, things they've done. I don't want it to be like that. I want it smooth with the rest of the deck. So I'll show you what we're going to do. Like I said, if you want to get a few years out of it, you can just weld it over top. Just like that. It's not going to hurt anything. But you're not going to be waterproof. There's going to be a lip from here to here. The reason we're doing this is to stop the rust. Make sure the metal that you're cutting is nice and thick. You don't want it to be really thin when you cut it. If it's real thin, you're just going to burn right through it when you try to weld. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to trim this. I want it to fit like that. basically right in the, you know, right up against the edge. So it kind of drops down and fits flush. So what I have to do now is I'm gonna have to mark it and trim the metal so that it almost falls through, like it just catches. And we're gonna cut right about there. Right about there. Right about here. Can't really see exactly. Let's do this. All right, so now as you can see, this almost fits perfectly. Like it's really, really close to what it should be. Now to get it to drop down and in, you'll switch to your grinder, which you need to grind this and clean it all up to get ready to weld anyway. And what you're gonna do is you're just gonna slowly take a little bit of material off the sides until it'll drop through and you can hold it with the other side of your hand where it stays flush. Then you're going to put a tack weld in each of the 4 corners and then make sure you're still flush and start putting tacks all the way around. Alright, so if you cut a piece off and it has a sticker like this, you can remove the sticker instead of using your grinder and messing up your grinder. Just take a propane torch and like heat the metal up, and just you could peel this sticker right off or burn it off, whatever you want. But you don't really want to be getting all this plastic in your grinder. That's what I'm going to do now. Alright, like I said, heat this up with a torch. Get everything off. Like I said, you don't want this on your grinding disc. I already prepped the metal here. I did not do the back, just the front. Obviously where I cut is all raw metal, so don't have to do nothing there. You can see it's nice and shiny. So I'm going to prep this real quick. I'll show you how. It's really simple. We're going to make it fit in the hole. I'm going to have my son record, so it might be a little bit shaky, but just make sure you don't have your finger on the microphone. Like hold it like this, but make sure they can see what I'm doing. Make sure if you are grinding, use protection for your eyes. Little pieces of metal will fling into your eye and you won't be happy. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to grind this edge to make it look like this. Now, depending how close you got it, you might have to do a little bit more, a little bit less. Oh, I think we got it perfect. You want it to just fall through with no effort. You don't want it gapped a million miles away, though. You want it, I'll show you in a second. But I'm going to hook up the welder. I'll show you what kind of welder I'm using, and then I'll show you how to patch this in. Alright, for welding, this is a Chicago Electric Harbor Freight flux welder. Same thing with the helmet. I got the helmet. Make sure you use a helmet. Do not weld without a helmet, because you'll go blind or worse. But this is just a cheap welder, flux welder. For my settings, if you do buy this, I'm set at 3 for the speed, and I'm set at minimum. If you go to max, you're going to burn right through the metal. Don't hit the max, go to minimum. And yeah, and put your electrode on raw metal make sure it's got a good connection. It'll arc and it's not going to weld good. And with that, we'll start welding. So what you're going to want to do, what I'm going to do is I'm going to prop the deck up on just a piece of concrete. You can use whatever you want that you got available. If you're having a hard time grinding, buy a new wheel, because when I first started, it was really hard for me to grind down the welds. Just removing the paint, if your paint is smearing instead of just grinding right off like nothing, get a new wheel. Your wheel is old, no good anymore. So as you can see, I can take this piece and I can kind of hold it here flush. So what you're going to want to do, you're going to want to kind of get it jammed in there the best you can. Just be careful of your fingers. There's going to be some sharp spots. If you can jam at least one corner, we'll try right here. We'll jam this corner in. Maybe this corner. Alright. So for this first step, if you look, I don't have my welding mask on. So what you're going to do to get your first weld done is you're going to grab the metal, you're going to put it into place. You can use welding gloves if you want. I'm just going to use my fingers. You can see I have this flush. I can run my finger over it and there's nothing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it and close my eyes and weld that particular spot. Alright, now it's holding itself in place. You see, I still don't have my mask on. I just closed my eyes and you can see this is flush. It's not down, it's not up. Now, if you look over here, this is already flush. So we're going to do the same thing. Put it, aim your thing. I don't know what this is called. Aim the wire. Close your eyes, just tack weld. If you burn through, it's okay, just keep tapping it. Sometimes you'll burn through. There we go, we got a nice little tack weld. So now, this actually looks pretty good. You can see I can run my finger over, it's nice and smooth, no gaps. So we're going to tack weld right here. Boom. Now if you look, this is the crucial part. This has a lip. See how it's hitting my finger? Now you have your tack here, you have your tack here, you have your tack here. So you're going to take your hammer, you're just going to tap it down just a little bit. You might have to hold it. See, I got to hold this one. So make sure it's flush, close your eyes, and just tack. Now boom, everything is flush. See that? So now what you're going to do, you're going to put your mask on and you're going to come about an inch away, put a tack, an inch away, put a tack, inch away, put a tack, all the way around. After you're done, I'll show you that. You don't need to watch it. I'll show you where I tack. Then I'll show you what I do after that. Press pause. Alright, so as you can see, I did about an inch apart all the way around, and you can still see I can run my finger flush. So the metal is flush, and it's tacked all the way around. Once you get to this point, if the metal is strong enough, which I found it isn't, so I've been just kind of tacking, you can run a full bead. You know, just drag it along, run a full bead. I have found that when I do that, it burns through. If you look through right here. So I would suggest not doing that. What I would do now is do halves, okay? Go in between all the tacks, which I'll do now. On the, you can watch if you want. Here. All right, so now that you've done that, what I would suggest is to just keep doing that, filling all the gaps. Just keep going in between each tack. What I found is if you go too crazy, you'll warp, this'll lift, and you'll lose that flush. So, after you get it looking like this, like it'll look like crap, okay? You're gonna grind it all smooth. Then there's so much metal here from the weld, you'll be able to run a smooth bead that'll fill in any of the little tiny pinholes that you end up having. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just keep tacking it all the way around the way I showed you, and then we're gonna grind it. And then now that it's reinforced, we'll run a full bead to fill in any little pinholes and stuff. But from what I found, you need to do the little tacks to keep it flush and to keep it structurally sound. You can always grind these off and run a bead over top of it to fill it. Also, we're still gonna weld on the bottom as well, because if you look at the bottom, I'll flip it around. You can see I'm getting good penetration, but there's still going to be a seam. Even if I throw a full entire weld on that top side, there's still going to be a seam. You can see on these. So you know, once you build up the weld, you should be able to, on the bottom, if you do this last, you should be able to just run a continuous bead because the metal is going to be so much thicker. So basically, I'm going to get this whole top done and grind it down and show you what it looks like when it's grinded down, and then we'll go from there. I'll show you what I do next. Just end the video. All right, now as you can see, I have a ton of little tiny tack welds all the way around. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wire wheel this so I'm gonna get all the slag off so you can see exactly what it looks like. All right, as you can see, there's a good amount of beads on here. Now, like I said, there's a reason why I'm doing these little tiny beads instead of running an actual bead on here, because it'll burn through. So what you're doing, you're building this top layer up. Okay? So what we're going to do, we're going to flip it and we're going to work from the bottom side. I'm going to show you one completely done, what it's supposed to look like. And then at the end, I'll show you what the whole entire deck looks like. But this is just a sample piece. But the way I showed you here, how I bent it down, it's going to be the same with these corners. Like these tiny corners, how you get it. You want to keep that contour because it's for the blade. You don't want the blade smacking into anything. So this is really strong. I mean, I had my son stand on it before I even put all the tiny beads. Just that one, the beginning that I showed you. So this is strong. So we're going to flip it around and then I'm going to show you what we're going to do. Yeah, get close. Recording?
Yeah.
All right, so now as you can see, you got some little things. You might not, depending on how good a welder he is. I'm not a professional welder, okay? But as you can see, even though I got this perfect on the top side, there's still a lip right here. That's fine though. because what we're going to do now, we're going to clean this up. You're going to want to put on your goggles. We're going to clean this up real quick. Alright, after you get it nice and clean, now we can actually run a solid bead. So this is where you're going to put your mask on. You're going to leave the settings the way they were, and we're just going to ride this bead here. Well, I completely missed. As you can see, my crack's here and I welded there, so we're just going to restart here because this is where I lost it. Now, as you can see, after you tack weld, it won't burn through because you're putting the heat on the old welds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tack weld all the way around, and then that's going to seal up your deck. As you can see, you will burn through every once in a while, so don't be scared. You can always fill it in with more weld. You gotta grind it smooth anyway. Well, like I said, you want that initial tack weld so you can put a bead down. So now what you're gonna want to do to make it smooth is you're just gonna want to lightly, don't push down hard. You're going to lightly, because if you push down hard, you're going to start taking metal away from the mower that you're trying to weld to. You want to make these welds flat, and then, well, we'll do that real quick, and then I'll explain next. So as you can see, everything is grinded down. Now the best thing for you to do is you're going to look through it. After you get this side grinded down as well, you're going to put a flashlight or use the sun, and you're going to see if there's any pinholes that you need to fill. Like I could see, I missed the seam right there completely. And there's a couple pinholes. There's a pinhole here, pinhole there. And then what you could do is just, you know, like you see how this is a little high. Just run a bead, just a small, quick bead. I'll show you. So you're gonna start where it's bare. And just run a quick bead. Now you're thickening the metal. Now grind that down smooth. And you're gonna do that with all of this. Every patch that you make, you're gonna weld both sides, grind both sides, and then you're ready for paint. All right, once you get everything ground down, as you can see, I had to do a lot of patches. So there's a patch here, patch here, patch here, patch here. A couple of rot holes I had to fix. I had to rebuild this whole corner. There's another patch here, another patch here, another one here. There's two right here. There's one here, one here, one here, one here, one here, and one here. So you're gonna do, hopefully you get yours in time where it's not as bad as mine was, but I got this tractor for free. So basically all you're gonna wanna do, make sure you can run your finger on it like this. You could be a little blotchy, but you want to be able to do that. So what you're gonna do is wash it after you grind everything down, get everything down to bare metal as best you can, and then what you're gonna do is you're gonna shoot this on it, and you're gonna, you know, if you have beaded weld like this, you're gonna want to get it real kind of soupy so it goes in all the little cracks. So I'm gonna paint this whole entire thing with this 2 coats, and then I'll show you what that looks like. Alright, so this is the first coat. You'll know when it's dry because it'll turn flat. It'll turn to a flat black. So we're gonna put another coat on, wait an hour between coats, and you know, depending on where you fix it, you know, like right here I couldn't get the grinder in here, but it's alright because we're gonna put a nice epoxy paint, which is really hard and really shiny, so the grass doesn't stick to it. When you are putting this on, like I said, you want to put it on pretty thick. Any spots that you have a drip on your second coat before you coat, just sand the drip down a bit and then spray over it, because the drips will chip off. You don't want drips, but you do want it to drip inside all of the welds, unless you're a professional welder and your weld looks like factory, you know. But I'm not a professional welder. I'm just trying to fix my tractor. So I'm going to put another coat on here, and then I'll show you the paint I'm going to use, the epoxy paint. And these are, you know, this paint you can get right at Walmart. It's pretty cheap, like $8. And the epoxy paint also I got at Walmart, and I think that was about $8. Alright guys, it's been about 2 days since I hit it with the rusty metal primer. Make sure you get all your pieces that need to go back in. You know, if you have these little dividers. This is the most important part. This is gonna keep it from rusting, keep the grass from sticking throughout the deck. So I'm gonna hit it with 2 coats of this, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. It's gonna be real nice, real shiny, real smooth. Alright, so there's the first coat. You can see it's very, very shiny paint, real smooth. Now there's a trick to this paint. Between coats, you want to put it on real thin, and definitely wear gloves. As you can see, just from spray painting, it kind of drips on the corner here. So what you're going to want to do is get yourself some lacquer thinner. You're going to pour a little bit in the cup or the cap. You're going to pull off the head between coats and drop it in lacquer thinner so that the head doesn't clog on you. It's a little tip. Alright, it's been 30 minutes, which is what the can says. So it's ready for a second coat. As you can see, I have my cap sitting in lacquer thinner. You're going to shake it off, put it back on. Don't spray yourself in the face with it. And you're going to want to spray the lacquer thinner out. Just like that. Do that every coat that you're using, and it'll always spray like brand new. Alright, here's your tip of the day. You're painting and it's really humid outside, bring it inside after you paint. And you can see I didn't use my gloves. This is what happens when you don't use gloves. Bring it in, turn your air conditioner on. As you can see, I did it to the two small pieces. After the deck sets for 30 minutes, I'll bring the deck in as well. It's going to help this cure. Where I live, we've had rain like every day, and it's really humid, so it would take forever for this stuff to dry. So if you have a room that's air conditioned, it'll take the humidity out of the air and allow the paint to dry nice. Alright, now that you got the bottom done, what you're going to do is you're going to go over the welds with the same paint, the epoxy paint. You should have enough left over. I got about a quarter of a can left. So you're just going to go over the raw metal, let that dry, and then we're going to primer it with a gray primer, and that's a sealer primer, which I'll show you. Well, first we're going to seal everything up with the epoxy first. Alright, I got all my hardware back in, the spacers and everything. So I'm going to flip it over. We're going to primer the top with a gray primer, and then we're going to shoot it red. Alright, now for the top, what I used is gray primer sealer. And I went pretty heavy on all the welds area just to seal in the cracks. I didn't really do too good on the actual deck. I just more worried about the welds, basically to get it ready for the actual color, which I'm going to be painting it with a Regal red. That's the color I used on my hood. It's pretty close to Toro's red. If you wanted it to be official, this is $8. Toro red is like $20, so it's up to you. Yeah, I'm gonna let this sit dry, and then I'll be spraying this on it, and then hopefully I can get it all back together today, and hopefully by tomorrow I'll be mowing. Alright, and here it is with the 2 coats of red. Came out pretty good. I got some overspray on here, but this will come off with some lacquer thinner, so I'm not really too worried about it. But yeah, I think the hardest part of doing this job was trying to rebuild this corner. If you see here, it's kind of hard to see, but that had to be rebuilt. That was probably the hardest part of the whole thing. But I'm pretty happy how it came out. I still got to take the tape off right there. Right there is the belt diagram sticker. But yeah. So by tomorrow I'll be able to put the spindles in, put the pulleys on, and we can test it out. Alright, as you can see, my grass is crazy long right now. Look at that. Probably about 4 inches. Some spots 5 inches. And she's doing a good job mowing. I got her all back together. And she's doing good. No bogging down. No clogging. I will put back in the plastic though. There's plastic recyclers. I'll show you. There's these. I didn't put these back in. The purpose of these, you can see that they're rough and broken, so I'll have to fix them, fiberglass them or something. But the point of these is the grass hits it and deflects it back down, and it chops up the grass again. So that way you don't get a lot of clumping. So I'm probably going to put those back in eventually. But for right now, she's mowing good. Good fix. Back to using my tractor. Thanks for watching.